Hello, my name is Mahir Patel, and I had option 2 of the medieval tower defense game. So for my first base class, I had the tower base class, and in the tower base class, there was the virtual display, there was obviously the basic tower settings, which had the float damage and float attack speed, and then the type of tower as well, and then the range of each tower. And then for the setters, there's the upgrade function, which sets the new values for the tower after they get upgraded. And then there's an update function, which updates the time and the amount of health that the enemies have and the XP that you've gained. And then there's the attack function, which sets the damage of the towers. And then for the getters, there's the get type function that gets the type of the tower you're currently using. And there's the upgrade function, which gets the cost of the upgrade. And then down there I have my protected variables. Okay, so for the derived tower classes, there's an arrow tower, there's a cannon tower, there's a magic tower, and there's a ballista tower. So first up, the arrow tower, it's the most basic tower. It's just got it's basically an all-rounder tower, which just got basically all-rounded stats. In the tower, there's the attack, the middle one's attack speed, the left one's damage, and no, 10's the attack, 2 is the attack speed, and then 50 is the range of the tower. And then whenever the tower is called for the attack function, it basically just attacks enemies, and then there's a random chance for the attack to land. And then for the ballista tower has a special function which pierces through armor. And that's where these functions come into play. And then basically, if the enemy's not alive, it gives the tower more XP. Then the magic tower is the next tower with another function, and the magic tower's function is that it slows down the enemy's speed by 60%. So basically, anytime an enemy gets hit by the magic tower, it will take damage as well as get slowed down, and the magic tower doesn't do as much damage as the ballista tower. That's what separates it, and the lower speed also separates it. Then for the cannon tower is basically similar to the arrow tower, but just a lot more damage and slower firing speed. Then my next class is the enemy-based class, and then for the enemy-based class, for the getters, there's the get armor, which basically returns how much armor each one of the different enemies have. And then there is the get speed, which returns how fast each enemy is. Then there's the getter that checks if the enemy is still alive, and then there's also a getter that checks if the enemy has reached your base. Then there's also the getter that checks how far the enemy is from your base, and then the one that checks how much health each enemy has, and then the getter that checks the type of enemy, and then it gets how much XP value each enemy gives. And then there's the protected variables, and then it's the enemy base, and then there's the display function, and then there's the setters that sets how much damage has been taken, and then it sets the speed of the enemy, and then it also will update. And then there's also a special one for troll, since trolls regenerate health. So then for the enemy derived classes, there's 3 derived classes, one for the goblin enemies, one for the orc enemies, and one for the troll enemies. Basically, the orcs and the trolls, they have special abilities. So for the orc, they have more armor than the rest of them, and the trolls have uh, an ability that gives them health regen of 5% every turn. And the goblins are normal enemies, but they're also, um, yeah, the goblins are just normal enemies. And then there are there's the game-based classes. Um, Basically, in the game classes, there's the game class, then there's the display class, and then for the getters, the only getter in the game-based class is the get game over, which basically sees if the game's over or not. And then there's the setters that there's the update for the delta time, which basically the point of the delta time function is to set the time for basically how many attacks the towers have done in the set amount of time. And then there's also the setter for the spawn wave, which starts the new wave after each wave is over. And then there's the setter for change tower, which sets the tower based on which tower you've selected. Then there's the setter for upgrade tower, which sets the upgrade level of the towers. And then there's the save game and load game. And then these are the private variables. And then these are all the functions in game. So this is the change tower, which basically, if you selected the arrow tower, it will change the tower to the arrow tower, and so forth and so on. And then for the save game function, basically the way that I implemented the save game was I basically had the file. I basically put into the file how much health the tower has, how much gold you have, how much XP you have, um, what's your level, what's your wave, and then what your tower type is. Basically, on every line, it just has it just has each of those. And whenever you load the game, it will just get the values for each of those and just start you off from there. And then for the spawn wave function, it's first called whenever you first start the game, and then it will be called again each time a wave is over. And then basically for the spawn function, it randomly selects one of the three enemies. It randomly selects 5 of the random 3 enemies, and then it will also increase with the wave count. And then after each wave, you also get 25 gold, and plus the wave times 5 of the amount of gold. Um, and then there is the display. Basically, the display function is called after every round is over, which will tell you what's the remaining health of the enemies, your remaining base health, and how much damage or health the enemies have left. And if you have won or the game has ended, it will tell you if you won and you defeated the castle, or if you lost and your castle has fallen. And then for the game update function, it basically updates the time, the towers, and gets rid of the enemies if they're dead. And yeah, it also will end or start the game. It'll end the game if your base has reached 0 health, and it will also end the game if you beat wave 5. And then on to the main function. Basically, this is the menu. It'll give you the options of continuing your round, changing your tower, upgrading your tower, saving the game, or loading a new game. And then after you implement your choice, it'll move on to the switch cases. Basically, if you selected case 1 where you just click continue, it will just skip through the switch cases and go straight to the update function. But if you do select one of the other options, it will, if you select 2, it will change your tower to whatever tower you had selected from the tower types. And then case 3 will upgrade your tower, case 4 will save your game, and case 5 will load your game. And now on to playing the game.